I used to have several sites. Now I kind of like the grower's edge. It gives me that cash max. You can tell it which markets you're looking for, and it will tell you what your highest net back is based on the price they're paying at that time and the basis that they're paying. And that's pretty handy because I don't have to go to so many different sites.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name is Cody Bills, this is Kevin McNew. Today is the 7th, it's a Wednesday. We had ethanol out here, but before we get to that, let's turn over to the iPad and see where we closed off the day. Corn trading down 8 3/4, down below $4 now. Soybeans unchanged on the day, and wheat in Chicago trading down 12 3/4 cents. Kevin, let's talk a little bit about ethanol here, as we did see corn dip below $4 into today's session and close down there.
Right.
Do you think the ethanol numbers came, do you think that had anything to do with the selling pressure?
Well, we're certainly past the first of the year where we start to see normal declines in ethanol production, but certainly we had a big drop in 23,000 barrels per day of production. It still, however, is above last year's pace. So, right now, cumulative year-to-date production is 4.9% above last year. When you compare that to what USDA has factored in, which is basically a very small 0.3% increase, even though we keep talking about potential for lower ethanol production, we're still not really seeing it compared to last year. So you got to wonder if on Monday USDA might have to inch up their ethanol production numbers just because we're about a quarter of the way through the marketing year and have not seen that big drop we've been expecting.
Absolutely, but when you look at the week-over-week changes, here we have the second big decline here in weekly production. Now, of course, we had the Christmas shortened week, we had holiday shortened week last week as well, so I think next week will be a big tell on whether or not ethanol production will be able to rebound. But we know that crude oil has been falling pretty significantly, and we've seen this reflected in the margins in Iowa in the crush market.
Yeah, it certainly has taken a bite out of the margins, but we are seeing ethanol prices start to stabilize as the gas market is stabilized. But we'll see. I do think USDA probably has to bump up their ethanol corn use numbers in Monday's report, so we'll see on Monday about that.
That sounds fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about wheat, another big decliner here on the day. One thing you'll notice is that we have some bitterly cold temperatures moving through the Midwest. We know Illinois and Indiana, southern part of Michigan, will be particularly susceptible to the cold weather here tonight and the lows. Take a look at the map here. You'll see a map of the U.S. as well as Eastern Europe and Russia here. It looks as though Russia and Eastern Ukraine are also going to be experiencing some very, very cold temperatures. Now, when we talk about Russia, there has been pretty significant snow cover in that area, but about 15% of the crop will not be fully protected, and so will be susceptible to some winter kill scenarios. So when you look at it, you have two areas of the world that will be experiencing some very cold temperatures, but that really didn't seem to support prices here today. Why is that? I think one of the main reasons is we're still in a hangover here from that massive rally that we saw as a result of Russia curbing their exports. I think we're seeing prices still at relatively lofty levels. People are looking at the winter kill scenarios and saying, weather is bad, yes, but prices are still high. We're looking for exports, and we haven't seen a whole lot of the sales be shifted over to the U.S. books.
Right, and just as a reminder, on Monday we will get the first indication of winter wheat plantings in that winter wheat seedings report by USDA, so stay tuned for that. We'll see what that holds for the wheat market.
Absolutely. Also on that Monday, we're going to have a number of other reports here. WASI report going to be very important here. But the question I have is, what do you think? What do you think the USDA is going to do with their numbers from December?
Yeah, that's the big question. And I think most people, we still haven't seen the survey of analysts yet, but I think most people are pretty much on par with what USDA had. I look back at historical numbers for the last 20 years, and interestingly enough, in both corn and soybeans, this year we're expected to have record yields. And I asked the data, what happens in years when we have record yields? When we go into that January report, does USDA tend to up their January final production estimate, or do they stay at or below the December estimate? And pretty much, by and large, for corn and soybeans, The issue is that they tend to increase their January final estimate over December in years of record yields. That held true for the last 5 record yield years for corn and for the 5 last record yield years for soybeans. So if you're a believer in history, then what you're thinking is that there's a bias towards higher production numbers for both corn and soybeans coming out on Monday.
That sounds pretty interesting. Now, I guess this is, of course, looking over a number of years. I mean, how many years back did you go?
Well, we went 20 years back to look at this, and you know, basically looking at those years that were indeed record yield years. So we didn't just look at all 20 years, but actually, you know, picked out the years of record yield years. And again, this year we're going to have record yields for corn and beans, and the question is, will this January estimate actually be higher? And you know, historically at least, USDA seems to improve that January estimate or bump up that January estimate in years of record yields like this year.
And tomorrow and Friday, one of those days, we should be getting the analyst polls here to get an idea of the range of analyst guesses for this January report. Now keep in mind the export sales report comes out tomorrow. Expectations are for wheat between 200 and 400,000 metric tons, corn between 600 to 800,000 metric tons, and soybeans between 500 and 700,000 metric tons. If you want to be ready for this WASDE report and you don't have live quotes, you can always take a demo at grainhedge.com. Go up in the top right hand corner there, click on the 14-day free trial. We'll get you set up with a platform and a mobile platform so you can watch these quotes live from your PC or your mobile phone. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here Thursday for the export sales report.